everyone. I'm here with a few of our members. I thought maybe we could have this as a little rebuttal to our other interviews in the past few weeks, or to hear from private practice owners and see what we think and what our needs are. If anyone has a question, you can put it in the comments and I'll bring it up. But I want to first start by having Jill Tanzi, right? Did I say it right, Jill?
Yeah.
Introduce yourself. Jill, tell me, where are you from and what do you do, and how long have you been in practice?
So I was born in Massachusetts, Oxford, Massachusetts, south of Worcester, Massachusetts. And I went to University of Maryland Dental School. I graduated in 2000. I started my own practice from scratch in Hopkinton, Massachusetts. It's in between Worcester and Boston. And I'm a general dentist. I have a large group practice, 4 general dentists and a periodontist.
Great. Welcome. Hey, Lance, this is our first time you and I meeting, so
sure.
Go
Good
ahead.
to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Tell me, where are you and what kind of practice do you have, and tell us a little about yourself.
So I graduated 2004 from Maryland as well. I practice in York, Pennsylvania, and I grew up this area and came back there. University of Baltimore is probably only about an hour and a half from here. So ended up back here, had 6+ associateships, went back, did some hospital dentistry for a couple of years, and then owned a practice for about 10 years. So I've had a couple of like part-time associates. Just this kind of talk kind of sparked my interest with the Delta stuff, because I built a new office like 2 weeks before COVID started. And we have like 8 chairs now, but going through the process, I've had a couple of part-time associates. And when I reached out to Delta to, look into credentialing another dentist into the office, they wouldn't. I was Premier only, and the whole thing now in Pennsylvania, at least, you can't be Premier only unless you're grandfathered in. So any doctor I'd have to bring in, I would have to bring them in under the Delta PPO. So I ended up dropping Delta about a year ago altogether.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
and that's a common thing I hear, and we're going to talk about that as well. Our other guest needs no introduction. It's Stephen Mauty. He's been online trolling people for over 22 years. He has a master's in trolling. But we got before you even introduce yourself, I want people to know there are 2 kinds of people: the type that gets you, and the type that gets you still and get angry at you. So everybody has their opinion of you, but tell me a little about you. When did you graduate? I know you're originally from New York. Where do you practice? Tell me a little about yourself.
So I grew up in New York, in Brooklyn. I graduated NYU in '87. I come from a family of dentists. My grandfather, father, uncle, mom was a hygienist until she got married. And then I moved to Florida in '91 because I met my future ex-wife there on vacation, and it just decided to move to Florida to be with her. And I bought my practice outright in '93 from a classmate who I ran into on the Bahamas on vacation, who was giving up dentistry. And he looked at me and goes, "What are you doing down here?" And I go, "Well, what are you doing down here?" And he goes, "Well, I live here and I'm selling my practice. What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I just took the boards." He goes, "Well, how did it go?" So I told him how it went. He goes, "Well, it sounds like you passed. Why don't you come down? Maybe we'll talk. Maybe you could buy my practice." So I looked it over. It was perfect practice for me. Low key, lots of insurance. It was a small practice, 2 chairs with like an overflow chair, but the practice had persevered even when he left to go to chiropractic school. So it was underperforming, a good price. So I went for it and I built it up into what it is today. And it's in Margate, which is like northwest Broward County, west of Pompano Beach. Middle class area, retirees, families. And it's gotten very busy over the last 6, 7 years as more and more people move down.
Yeah, I want to start by actually introducing, because we all complain about insurance. We're here today. We're going to hear a lot of complaints about insurance fees and things like that. I want to bring to everyone's attention how Mauty's model is. And then when people talk about fee for service, do this, Medicaid, things like that, any model can work. And Mauty and I have talked about this. Mauty, how much? What's your crown fee?
It ranges from, I would say, high 300s to maybe one plan pays me 8, but my typical fee is, I'd say, 500. That's like the average that I get for a crown.
So you basically work on high, capacity office, right? You're not sitting down drinking coffee, like you're
No,
going.
I'm moving around.
Yeah.
I'm moving. I mean,
He still
while
finds
I'm
time to post on Facebook.
Yeah, no, I could do that too, but I mean, if I'm answering a tooth for 15 seconds, I'll dip into the next room just to see what's going on. I mean, I'm constantly moving, and there's no wasted time. I do go to the bathroom and I go to the back to get some water and relax, but basically I'm moving all day.
Yeah.
So
And I want people to know that also, I've known Mauty for a long time, and is that his patients actually feel like they're cared for. It's not like, a lot of people here think that if you're not fee for service, you can't, provide good quality dentistry. To me, that's bogus. I've seen bad dentistry in every model. So let's start. Oh, by the way, I'm Bob D. I'm graduated 92 from Loyola. And I'm originally from San Francisco, for those who know me, but I'm stuck in Chicago for 30 years. And that's it. That's all you need, I guess. I want to talk about this article, and I'm sure everybody knows what this article is. I'll put it in the comments later on if you haven't seen it. We have a chief economist of the American Dental Association basically explain a model of dentistry and telling us that it's coming and we better get used to it. So this started a big uproar, and they issued a retraction or clarification. I like to say that they were not really telling us that this was coming, but basically explaining what was happening, and it may take a while, but it's coming, basically. Jill, what did you think about that article and the response?
Well, the article, I thought they're basically describing capitation. It's just another word for capitation, what they're talking about. But the response was that they're not going to advocate for what we want. They're not going to take any position. And that's a far cry from the way the article read. But just taking them at that, I think I need a dental society to advocate for me. If not, it's not worth paying the money to be a member.
Yeah, I get it too. My whole take on it was, you're part of the organization representing dentists. Maybe you should have been a little bit clearer about what you mean. I just thought
it seems very vague and non-committal. And we know they have that other group, I forget the name of it, with the insurance companies. And then the guys tagging insurance executives. They're probably great people, but for me as a dentist, I want someone to advocate for me. I want to have lobbyists that are advocating for me. And I've never checked if the ADA lobbyists are actually advocating for me, but in Massachusetts, I have checked, and legislators had told me back in the day, where are your lobbyists? So I thought, I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's why we started the Alliance of Independent Dentists here, because now we have our own lobbyists. We don't have to worry about the ADA or Mass Dental Society. We'll work with them if they're advocating for the same things, but they really hadn't been.
Yeah, and we're gonna get to that as well a little bit. Mauty, give me your take on this whole thing.
Well, I read the JADA like every time it comes out, and the JADA is increasingly swung left over the years, but they've been very low key about it. Mostly they're focused on like access to care and Medicaid. So, and then also I noticed they advocated evidence-based care. So they've been shifting to that kind of big brother approach, but they kept it very low key, quiet. And this time they just slammed us over the head with a rigid, controlled payment system that would destroy private practice dentistry. I mean, dentists can't practice under that type of a system, where they give you X amount of dollars and then they could penalize you or reward you based on the outcomes. How could outpatients don't even care about their teeth? I mean, my income has to depend on if Joe Smith is not going to go home and eat, caramel candy at night and wash it down with a six pack of Coke. So that's my fault. So that's what they're advocating. It was a very strong editorial. It was not, like a suggestion. It was like, okay, this is what's coming. You better get used to it. Doesn't matter if you're angry or you don't like it. Just hop on board and deal with it. And, it's kind of like, that kind of mirrors what's happening in society now. It's kind of like the ADA's Bud Light moment. It's like when Bud Light just ignored their customers and said, screw you, this is who so this is our spokesperson now, or our representative, and we don't care about, the average customer that buys Bud Light. So this editorial didn't show that they don't care about the average general dentist. They care about some, centralized scheme. I remember in the article Marco wrote, we have to make the treatment guidelines and treatment like uniform from state to state. Like, you reduce the variation in treatment from region to region. A dentist in Oklahoma may have a different mix than a dentist in, an inner city in like New York City, for example. So they want to eliminate that and standardize everything. It's just basically a way to impose control, and also for the insurance companies, it's great because their costs are fixed. If they collect X amount of dollars in premiums and they know they want to pay out, a certain amount from that, they have a more predictable model. That's the one negative of insurance. It's like gambling. Sometimes the insurance company gets walloped, like during a hurricane in Florida, or if there's like high healthcare costs, a medical insurer may have to pay out a lot of claims. This way, their costs are controlled. I just didn't like the editorial. It was advocating something that's actually bad for the ADA members. They're supposed to defend our incomes. They're supposed to do things that keep our incomes where they are and keep our independence the way it is. I became a dentist for the income and the independence, not to work under some harebrained outcome scheme, that's out of my control. Most things within dentistry are in my control, and if they're not, I get compensated for it. If a patient, if I do a roundhouse on a patient and he doesn't come in for cleanings, and 10 years later the thing is decayed, I get rewarded for doing a full denture and maybe an implant case. Under his system, I would get penalized because I didn't make house calls and make sure the guy brushed before we tucked him into bed.
Well, let me first, before we continue, there's a very interesting demographic in this group. Okay, I want to first introduce everyone. I know from reading Lance's posts for over a year, Lance and Mauty are conservative guys politically in the whole general political stuff. I think I know Jill a little bit, and I hope I'm not stepping out, that we are a little bit more liberal.
I would say I'm independent, but
Right.
I'm from
And
Mass.
I would
I'm
say
probably
I'm
pretty
like,
liberal compared to Mauty.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
but then
consider
again-
myself an independent. Yeah.
Right, but what I'm trying to get at, this is the interesting part about this issue, that we, I would guarantee you, if we write down political topics on a paper, all four of us would probably agree on most of it. In other
I could
words,
say we probably all agree that a capitalist system is best,
yes, absolutely.
right.
right? Like hands down, we know, we can look back at history and know this.
That's why it's not liberal versus conservative. It's
Yeah.
just this funnel towards like central planning and these
But I don't think
people at
every
the
liberal person wants central planning. Like there's different levels of.
yeah. But it's discouraging when you see our organizations that are supposed to be representing us like jumping on board with this stuff that they're doing they've been doing this in medicine for a while, the outcomes, like your income being based on your outcomes, particularly in Medicare system. And like, I don't know if this person inside the ADA is trying to make a name for themselves so they can jump into some, government bureaucracy, down the road there. But I mean, it seems like that's what, dentistry and medicine, you just can't like assimilate the two because we operate very differently as far as our models in private
I
practice.
actually think you could, but it would make dentistry much more expensive. I think that if dentistry went the way of medicine, you're going to have complex coding systems. You're going to have an increase in administration costs, like medicine. There's only so much that's being given to the doctor out of the whole pie now. There's so many people taking a cut. Big medical systems and like healthcare systems, insurance companies, and it's a lot of profit for some CEOs somewhere. And I don't know what you call that system. It's not socialized medicine, and it's not capitalism necessarily. So I think it's like uncontrolled capitalism with like not enough regulation on it.
Yeah, this whole thing with Marco is just another example of where government and big corporations want to consolidate control. It went into hyper drive during COVID, and this is just a continuation. And Marco worked for the World Bank, so those guys are like globalists. So the Marco, I guarantee you, Marco's background is like a globalist, central planning type guy. He's not a capitalist, and the ADA really hired him just to be an economist. Now he's becoming an advocate, so he's stepping out of his lane here. I like
most
of
the economists come out of the school of Keynesian thought, and which is central planning.
Right.
And it's disgusting. And like I said, I didn't know that about the World Bank, but it totally makes sense. Like this guy's just, he thinks one way, and most economists that are coming out of these schools of thought, like they all think the same way. Consolidation and central planning is, rules the day. And like, yeah, it's even worse. He's not even looking for, a U.S. central planning. These globalists that are pushing this, like the WHO and World Bank, they all, it doesn't serve us well.
Well, I saw that during your show on YouTube the other day when you introduced Marco. You said he was an economist for the World Bank. That's all I needed to know.
Right.
I know what that guy's thinking.
Let's switch the concentration from Marco into what we really want. The reason I put this together is I'm titling it as the future of private practice in dentistry. Is there a future? There are Marcos of the world telling us that the DSOs and the corporate dentistry are going to take over. I debate anyone to say that. Like, for example, this value-based dentistry. I don't care who says it's going to happen. I've seen with patients that it's not going to happen. Dentistry is a lot different than medicine. Dentistry, it's like, you pick your surgeons, unless you have to. In dentistry, you don't have to. They can bring value-based dentistry, but if 50% of dentists don't participate in any type of insurance, it becomes like Great Britain. We will have a two-tier system, a government supported and a private. So I don't think private practice is going away, but I want to send a message to the ADA. And what do we want them to advocate for us? Is it value-based dentistry? Obviously it's not. What do we want the ADA to advocate for us? So they have a blueprint of this is what people want. And we're going to have many more of these chats as people listen to this and want to join. I'm going to have these probably once a month. That would be nice to have. Jill, tell me what your expectations are of your ADA. And I keep saying your because it's ours. It's 150 years it's been built. Why should we let it go by not joining? I know your feelings about the ADA, but I want to know, what would it take for you to join? What do you need to see?
Need to know they're advocating for me, and also that they're keeping an eye on my state dental society and make sure they're advocating for me as well. I'll just give one example. Dental therapists in our state, the ADA said, we don't support dental therapists, period. Well, my state was working to pass a bill for dental therapists, and don't we follow the ADA rules and what the mission is and what we've decided as a national organization? I just find everything very disjointed, and that's why we need our own representation in our state, and a lot of politics is local. So I thought, well, I'm going to use my energy to do that.
And for
But
those who
yeah,
just,
advocacy is number one, and
right,
have
for
clear
those-
rules about what we support and what we don't support. Maybe we can't, because the ADA supports, private practice dentists supposedly, and academics, and people that work for insurance companies are dentists too. Like, there's so many different groups. How can they support everyone? I feel like they should be supporting us the most. We're the majority, but maybe it's too hard when you have too many groups.
I
Well,
mean,
that's the excuse they use, because I also read the Florida Dental Association Journal a lot, and it's constantly, it's just there's an obsession with Medicaid. So I asked the outreach person there, it was very good. She gets back to me within a day or a half a day. I said, what's the obsession with Medicaid? She goes, well, we have a lot of members that participate with Medicaid and accept it. But I think, so I don't know. So I think the way the ADA approaches this is they're trying to please everybody, or they're maybe not being honest with what the members really think. I wonder how many members actually are for value-based care. Maybe there's some members that are for that type of a system, and they felt they have to advocate for them too. I really don't know. We don't really know the demographics of the ADA members, really, like what they think.
I was just thinking the same thing. I would be really curious to see who's actually paying their dues, because I was the York County president 3 years ago, and all I know is when dentists are in corporate entities or DSOs, they don't come to anything. They usually get the 2 or 3 years of like discounted or free membership, and then they don't renew. They don't come out to anything. Like, the only people that are active, at least in my area, and I know are paying their dues, are the private practitioners. I don't know why they're representing DSOs or even taking advertising money, because I think at least from what I've seen, by and large, the people that pay their dues year in and year out are the private practitioners.
so I heard something from someone, don't want to name names, but this was actually today. They told me this was their theory, that they are catering to DSOs more because they feel as they're going to be the major employer for dentists. And if they make a deal with DSOs, they can have basically force the associates to join the ADA, or have them pay the associates membership, so the funds keep coming in. To me, if that's true, obviously these are all theories. We don't know the truth, but that's very short-sighted, meaning that DSOs are, you guys have heard me talk about this, they're going to be capped. There is no way patients.
There has to be a limit. The patient care coming out of those places is
Exactly.
It's not good.
No, patients, no, but I've seen garbage dentistry out of private practices.
Right. I don't disagree with that.
I'm talking about consistency of dentistry, meaning
If
patients.
you think in generalities, like in general, the quality coming out of private practice, and people get so offended when you say that, because God forbid they work for a DSO and they pour their heart into it. That's fine. But I'm saying in general, the stuff coming out of the DSOs, patients, we see it just with our new patient flow. They come in and like, they just, the first thing they ask is like, some of the patients that call the office are like, we just want to know that you're not owned by a corporate entity. And
No,
like,
I'm not agreeing with that.
Well-
You can't make an ethical dentist become unethical by putting it in different environments. That's a total different thing.
You should see some of these.
I worked in a corporate office, and the pressure that was put on me to extract over 100 teeth a day, it was intense. And like, I get it. Like, and I left because.
Did you do it? I mean, you didn't do anything.
I had a patient that was sedated in the chair, and they're like, everything's signed off. They signed it under sedation, light sedation. And like, I did it, and like and I just wouldn't keep doing it. I was just like, I did it, a couple times, and I was like, I'm just not comfortable with this. These patients they're not fully understanding what they're signing up for, and but
But
when
that's
you're a young dentist and you got a lot of financial pressures, you do things that, like, in hindsight, maybe you shouldn't have did it.
Yeah, and some of the treatment plans are very aggressive, and
I
the
would agree.
fees are very aggressive. They nickel and dime for everything. So I get a lot of second opinion consults from corporate offices, because my office is kind of like a corporate office in the way that it's a high volume, but I treat them like individuals. I don't pile on the charges and nickel and dime and upgrade. So a lot of
Right.
these people get these ridiculous, they say it's a bait and switch. They say they take their insurance, then but they really don't take the insurance, because then they add on all
Right.
these extra fees. So
Yeah,
I
but
think
they also-
the corporate will be capped by like the market. The market will cap it. I don't know if the ADA can do anything. But I think
exactly.
the market will take care of that.
Exactly. The free market society says, I have a patient sitting there. I'm like, why did you come to us? The patient says, I had 3 dentists in 2 years. I don't want that. I want the same dentist. And
Right.
on the other hand, the DSOs, it's not all rosy. The DSO right next to my office has had 4 or 5 dentists in 5 years. So they can't keep dentists. They can't keep patients, so they're constantly looking to regenerate their population of dentists and patients. So that's not a formula for growth. The only way they grow is to have more and more dentists, and that's when I say, and I want Jill, I want you to comment on this. My main concern in the world of dentistry is not insurance, is not the ADA, is the high cost of dental education that enslaves young dentists into these jobs that they don't have a choice. They can't come to me and say, okay, it's okay if I'm a little slow, I'm going to build a practice within a practice. They have to go for these high volume, high, basically daily guarantees and things like that, so they can pay their bills. What do you think, Jill?
I think a lot of the high cost is coming from the dental school, but it's also coming from the cheap cost of money. And if they keep letting students borrow like $500,000, what's stopping the price from going up? So I think if you're going to take that kind of debt, you have to be a practice owner. Like, why would you even go into dentistry and make a low salary for years? I don't know. It's like you say, it's too much pressure. DSO, I worked for a DSO actually, but it was so mismanaged. I could pretty much do what I wanted. No one was putting pressure on me there. It was like, we had staff, it had just switched over. So it was really mismanaged. But
I don't know if I call it a conspiracy theory between the dental schools, the government, and the banks, and the corporate, I don't want to say dentists, but the corporate entities that are out there, private equity, to make sure the dentists coming out, at least for 2 to 3 years, want to work for a DSO. That's how private equity is getting their money, basically.
But here's my leftist thought on that. Like, why not have them work for a clinic, and maybe make it cheaper, or pay back some of their debt? Because if you want to solve these problems, you can't be forcing people to take Medicaid. It's almost like working for free or for negative. Like, it should not be done on the backs of us. Like, the government needs to pay us a fair wage to take on Medicaid patients.
A lot of the different countries around the world do that. They make the education free, but you have to give 3 or 4 years and go work in areas that are, do not have easy access to care. But I see Mauty's hair raising, because that's kind of like socialist stuff, right, Mauty?
It's not kind of, it really is socialism.
Yeah.
Well, we actually have it here. You
Yes,
can
we
get
do.
I don't
student loan
disagree with you.
forgiveness.
I mean, we're way down the road of serfdom already. I mean, I worked at the VA hospital for 5 years. Like, if that's our model for, like, oh, you just give a few years. I mean, there's so much dysfunction and waste in those entities compared to private practice. It would blow most people's minds. They'll throw $1 million away or just like literally burn it.
But is it
You know,
better to work for that or like a DSO? I don't know.
honestly, I think a
it's better
DSO is
to
better.
work wherever. But,
Yeah,
you know,
I would take the DSO any day over like a government run. I mean, there's so much,
too.
there's just no profit motive to do anything right in those types of settings. And I mean, we have one up here in Harrisburg that like I helped out there just like teaching a little bit, and like the people that they hire to manage them are so incompetent. And I don't even know the rationale why they hire these people. Maybe they have the right degrees or whatever, but they're not in it because they're public servants. They're serving themselves first and foremost. And the patient care is so far down the line of like making these. I mean, the turnover is just they had probably 4 or 5 years where they couldn't keep a dentist more than like 4 months. It was just so dysfunctional, and like it's just a bad model. And like it's not that you don't care for people, and like I'm all for charity and stuff, but like call it what it is. Don't force people to go work for these entities. And what happens is then you get these federal entities and you're competing for patients. Like say somebody has, I mean, we all treat middle-class patients, and you know, they have $500 to fix up a tooth, and like they could go to this subsidized entity or come to your private practice, and you know, you got all this overhead, and these federal, you know, subsidized entities have no overhead because somebody else is paying it. Like they can offer cheaper care. It's a very dysfunctional system, and it sounds great in theory, but it never works out.
Yeah, I think the eventually the dental education costs will be also worked out by the free market, because it happened in the 70s and the 80s. When I applied for dental school, dentistry was out of favor. There have been a few schools that had closed. The attendance was down because dental incomes were not like keeping up with medicine. It was not considered an attractive field. So I think eventually that's going to happen. You know, there's too many.
I would agree.
Too many schools as it is. So now people are going to start thinking, what do I need to borrow $500,000 to make $140,000 a year when I could go make the same money getting a business degree or some other degree? So I think eventually some of these schools will close, and it'll just take time. That's all.
Yeah,
I mean, it's much bigger than dentistry though. I mean, this is a whole higher education thing. The government just has to get out of the loan business.
Yeah.
And they can't, because it's you know, and so there's no controls on costs when the government foots the bill for whatever these, you know, students want, and the schools. Yeah. I mean, it's just, and you got kids graduating with $200,000 loans from Penn to go do social work, making $40,000 a year. The math doesn't add up. It's the same with dentists taking out $100,000 to, you know, make $150,000 working at a DSO.
Well, actually, college enrollment is down over the last few years, so
that's actually encouraging. That's encouraging. A lot of these small schools need to close.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's ask some questions here. Jeff and Spence are asking about this dental therapist, Jill. Did that pass? They're saying that it didn't get out of the committee.
No, thanks to us, it did not pass. And the state organization changed their decision on that. So they are now not supporting it, but for 2 years we fought it alone.
And for those who are just joining us, Jill is in Massachusetts and what is the name of your organization, Jill?
Alliance of Independent Dentists.
Alliance of Independent Dentists. She stole the idea from me and put it in Massachusetts.
Yes, 6 years ago.
When we didn't know each other. But when we're coming up with these ideas because we feel a void. We feel a void that the ADA is not advocating for private practice owners. We have basically 4 different private practice owners on this panel, and we're all telling them, look, this is what we want. We want to have a seat at the table when you guys are talking to insurance companies. We want to, this is my idea here. I'm tired of closed door meetings. Why do we have closed door meetings for the ADA and for all these state organizations? Open it up, record it, show it to all the members. Who said what and what is happening? Transparency and accountability. I talked to Dr. Comia about this, and he agrees, and I'm hoping to see this. I have joined the ADA for the first time in 15 plus years, and I'm going to give them 3 years. I'm going to work for them for free. I'm going to help them recruit, and let's see what happens in 3 years. Do they really mean business? Because they're going to become irrelevant. Jill, what did you guys do with this Alliance of Independent Dentists? How did you get it off the ground?
So it started back in 2017 when we got these notices from Delta that, hey, we're gonna just slash your reimbursements 25 to 30%. So sign it or you're out of network. The Dental Society did fight that a bit, and they had a closed door meeting, and they decided at some point that, oh, we'll just lower it 10%. But it's much more complicated than I'm making it seem. But over the course of like a year and a half, it ended up being like 8.8%. But we went to the Division of Insurance and we testified against Delta. We weren't part of any of the closed door meetings, but I just think sometimes as an organization, like sometimes making deals isn't a good thing. Like you have to say no, like this isn't good for us, like stand up. It can't be like half, because then the legislators, they see that are we like against it or not against it? Or sometimes it's just good to say no, like we're not going to negotiate it with you. We're not going to negotiate with an insurance company. We're not going to negotiate for dental therapy. Like we're not going to make all these compromises. We just have to say no.
Great. Mauty, what's your take on this? I know you're still an ADA member. You always say it's the cheapest.
I've always been an ADA member.
You always say it's the cheapest, advocacy that we have. But what if they're not advocating for us? What if people feel that they're not advocating for us? Are you willing to get involved?
Well, if they continue with the strategy that last editorial said, then maybe we would have to quit.
But then what would happen? Let's say you quit. Then what happens? They love Delta. A Delta employee told me, Dr. Bob, they're just waiting for you complainers to retire. Okay.
Yeah, but the ADA, they can't exist without our membership dues. So if they go full socialist like they just did, and all of us quit, they'll cease to exist, or their finances will be crimped.
Can I interrupt?
You can interrupt.
They will exist.
Yep.
With 0 of us. They have income streams that outnumber the membership fees. And that's what happened with the American Medical Association.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
15% of doctors are part of the American Medical Association.
Yeah,
because the American Medical Association is in business for themselves, and they make all their money from selling codes. And that's just the path the ADA is going down right now.
I want to disagree with you there, because I want to show that I have drank the Kool-Aid. They're not, and somebody else commented here, they're not going socialist. We are going to ask for changes and reforms, and we want to bring our membership to 85%. That's my goal in 3.
Here's the thing: even if
That's
they
pretty
don't,
ambitious.
even if they don't need our dues to stay in business, if they're going to advocate VPC and similar programs, I still wouldn't be a member, because even if they don't need the money, why do I need to give them money they don't need anyway? I give them, if I'm giving them the money that they don't need now, because they do some things that have benefited us over the years. I can name a few examples where they've actually helped us. Like I remember there was this red dot legislation that was proposed, and they got dentistry exempt, and they sued MetLife and Aetna, I remember, years ago. And since then, MetLife and Aetna have been much, much better. So they have done some things. And during COVID, they weren't bad. They could have been maybe more strong, pushing back against the lockdowns, but they weren't bad. So they are useful. But if they're going to, propose value-based care and that type of attitude, then they don't need us to be members.
The line is.
Can I say something about the socialist thing? Like, I don't think this is socialist. I think this is big corporations, big profits for healthcare organizations, for insurance companies, and private equity. Like, this is not socialism.
It's crony corporatism.
Yeah,
right, but that is like socialism, because
that's what it ends up in.
You have a partnership between the government and big corporations, and then the rest of us serfs just get our rations.
I don't know about socialism. The government. I mean, maybe,
but it doesn't really matter what it's called.
Healthcare systems, they're not government owned.
Okay,
Well, it doesn't really matter what you call it. The bottom line is it's not good for dentists, that system. You know,
but
it's not good
yeah,
for dentists.
Right.
obviously,
Either way.
they're
Right,
saying
right.
that they're not advocating for it. The
Right.
official line is that they're not advocating for VBC, for value-based dentistry. And, you know, until it's proven otherwise, I'm going to take their word for it for now. Okay, to just make sure, and that don't come out with these articles every other week, ADA, that says, oh, we're not advocating, but get ready. That's advocating.
Right.
Start telling us strategies about how to fend off all these attacks on our businesses.
Right,
I always tell my physician friends that dentists are not just healthcare workers, we're like restaurant owners as well. We deal with the same type of thing because we're small business owners. Someone here mentioned, I don't want to name names, but the executive session is the standard operating procedure for the Mass Dental Society. Jill, you can maybe comment on this. Transparency has been replaced by a let's make a deal attitude. Is that what
Yeah,
you're
I think when they go into executive session, there's no notes or you can't, it's secret
Why is it secret?
because they're making deals. I don't
Lance,
know.
you
I'm not
told-
in it.
you told me you were the president of your local society?
No, I'm the Alliance of
Oh.
Independent Dentists. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was talking, as I was asking.
Alliance.
That was me, yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
where are you again?
York, Pennsylvania.
Okay, so you were basically part of the 3-part system? You were the,
Yeah, I was like the local level.
The
I
local
sat in on one or two, like we have like in Pennsylvania, there's like, I think 7 or 8 districts. So I went to 1 or 2 of the district meetings. Even the like people at the district meetings, like like they were saying, like there are these like higher up meetings, but like very few people are like invited into these like sessions, so to speak, with, especially when you start like, oh, we're, you know, speaking with Delta or whatever. And like, I don't know, like it feels like the people that should be in those meetings aren't there.
yeah. I don't know. Marty, you've ever been involved in organized dentistry or just write a check?
No, I just write a check.
Yeah. I've never been involved either. I don't know, life is busy and you don't realize what's happening behind closed doors. So in the past few weeks or few months that I've gotten to know Dr. Mo Riscala and our friend, mutual friend Jill, Dr. Abe Abdullah, the new president of the Mass Dental, it blows my mind how much politics there is.
I think people underestimate how bad it is too. We tried in Pennsylvania, we had assignment of benefits legislation was pushed through, everything passed the state house, the Senate, we had all the votes and the governor just had to sign off on it. And like somebody tweaked something, it changed the wording and then it had to go back to the house. And then they ran out of time before the end of the fiscal year. And so in Pennsylvania, the legislation has to start all over. It's as if nothing was done and we never got the assignment of benefits. This was 2 years. And then the ADA finally just gave up on it. They just quit. We've been trying to push this rock up a hill for like 10 years. You know, over half the states already have assignment of benefits. And like I met with legislatures, like we thought it was a done deal. Everyone's high-fiving each other. And like, everyone was just like, we got like sucker punched when the legislation like didn't fall through. Like within like 48 hours, we kept getting all these emails like, hey, they changed the wording, it's still gonna go through. And like, everyone was just in shock when it didn't happen. And like, there's so much stuff that happens behind closed doors. And like, from what I understand, the insurance lobbyists got in with a couple of legislators and knew that they couldn't get the votes they needed, but if they changed the legislation, just prolonging it, that they just know how the system works. And it's just, you know, not to be disheartening, but man, it is really hard to get legislation across the finish line.
It's really hard to pass a bill. It's really hard to pass a bill
It's a nightmare.
anywhere.
You know why? Do you know why? This is why I'm telling you guys, I changed my mind about joining the ADA. We need to play the game just like them.
I agree.
By saying not paying into ADA, stepping on the on the sidelines and start complaining on Facebook this and that or that. We need to do the same thing that they do. And I'm not going to say things, but they spend money on lobbying. When was the last time we paid any? I didn't pay anything. I don't pay to politicians or anybody. How are they supposed to lobby? So I believe if we put a system that we join and then we ask for accountability, what did you do with that money? Our next interview with Dr. Pomia, we're scheduling it now, is going to be on finances of the ADA. I want transparency. I want to see what's happening to this money that comes in, who is paying in, what's taking out. Mauty, what do you think? You as a conservative, fiscal responsibility, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to know where the money comes in from to fund the ADA and what they do with it also. I would like to know that. I'd like to know what percentage of revenues is member dues versus contributions, donations. I'd like to know. That'd be very important to know, because that would show what influence we really have. Maybe we're wasting our time. If 20% of ADA revenue is members, then we really don't have any clout. I don't know. I would like to know I think that's important to know.
One of our friends, mutual friends, writes, let's not forget what happens in all of organized dentistry, that I'm gonna word it in my own words, dentists get wined and dined to make sure they vote along the party lines, basically. The regular volunteer dentist in the local chapters. So it's just like Washington, D.C., it seems like they learn from the politicians how to do this. Another member here says maybe we need younger practicing dentists in the leadership positions. But guess what? We can't have that because they're enslaved to their debt. $500,000. How are they going to go work for the ADA?
They won't even come out to the CE meetings. They're not going to go do leadership positions.
Yeah. What do you think, Jill? Are you ready to quit your job and be the president of the ADA?
Not yet, but like I still have kids in school, but it is a good thing when you're older and maybe you're more financially stable that you can give back.
Are you calling me old?
Maybe a little older than you even, like I don't know, everyone's got their expiration date, I think, in dentistry. Everyone's a little different. So maybe your back is starting to hurt or you can't see as well. I don't know. Is it time to maybe give back to the dental community and be an advocate?
Yeah, I mean, everybody has their own ideas. I actually like this executive director idea. If the executive director is hired by dentists, hey, go work for us while I work in my own practice. You see, this is a good system, except there's no transparency, closed door meetings. We don't know what they're doing, where the money comes from. These are the things that if the ADA is listening, and I know they are in the group, you need to change. To make change, you need to change within. The culture is, people are suspicious of it. I'm sure Lance has a lot to say about that, right? Lance, you're definitely suspicious about everything in there, right?
I'm a little jaded. No, but I think it's a great idea. I would love to, like, if I knew I would pay an extra couple $1,000s a year if I had like somebody that I voted for, I know represents private practitioners and is transparent and is like letting us know, like, and it's somebody that's one of us. I would take that position. It was like, if we could all like pool our resources, pay someone, $300,000 or $400,000 a year, whatever, a good salary paid, clinician makes in private practice, get one of these wet finger dentists to like go and be our representative. Like that would be awesome.
Yeah, but sometimes that doesn't work. When we get plumbers doing root canals, when we get businessmen doing politics, sometimes that doesn't work. I don't want to get too far into the politics of the thing, but I also want
our current system doesn't work, so I don't know.
but it does. If we get someone who knows how to lobby,
we do it at the AGD here in Pennsylvania. We have like a lobbyist who actually he doesn't make enough just to represent the AGD, but like he's a lobbyist and like he has 2 or 3 other entities that he works for. So a third of his time he donates to the AGD and represents us. And I feel like we get more out of our AGD lobbyists than we do from our ADA stuff from Pennsylvania.
Same with the Alliance. Like we have our own lobbyist.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really effective. There's not all these meetings that we have to approve every little thing and have votes. Like, it's just a small board, and we're all representing private practice, so we're all thinking the same way.
And the
Um,
lobbyist knows the system, like they know how the legislation works, and like we don't know any of that.
When I hear that word lobbyist, Mauty, it raises, it's like I cringe, because all my life I've known to not like lobbyists. You know, that what was that McCain Ferguson Act? What was it? You know, the campaign finance reform never got anywhere. So we're not talking about lobbyists. That means we're basically, are we supposed to bribe politicians to vote with us?
Yeah,
It's not
that's how it
bribing.
works.
Is that what
bribing, they give
lobbyist
us
is?
meetings, we talk to politicians, we don't even
Yeah,
have to
plus
go to
it's
the
not
State House
just
anymore, we
that.
can go on
It's
Zoom.
also, when you have a personal relationship with someone, they're more likely to listen to you than if you're a stranger. You know, if you go out to dinner with someone and you're friendly with them, they're more likely to be in your corner. You know,
The system is all broken, man. I don't like this thing, but we got to play the game.
This is the system that you have to work with. Yeah.
And I
So
want to bring back a point that Lance brought up, and I love it because I've been saying that a lot. If the ADA shows that they're effective, wouldn't you pay even more than the 1,200? I will write a check for 5,000 a year. That's like the cheapest thing we can do to protect our assets, right?
right.
So I think
It's just how do you
would-
know you have faith that this person is going to, you know, properly represent private practitioners and the issues that we are like. I don't want to hear about supporting Medicaid or this diversity and equity and inclusion stuff. It's like that stuff has nothing to do with private practice.
access to
I'm going to
care.
disagree with you there. Inclusion and diversity is important because we are a diverse and need to be an inclusive country. Now, I don't want to bring that in. They can have committees and they can have a budget for that. What I want, and we can address a few things. We do root canals, right? We can do a few things at the same time. We can have a committee for inclusion and diversity to help that. But even our minority dentists are concerned about the same things we're concerned about. So most of the resources need to be done here, but we can also help the diverse community to include. Mauty, you ready to punch me or what?
No, I agree, but as long as the committee isn't paid for, I don't think we need to divert precious resources into paying for that. You know, some of the states have already eliminated DEI departments in public universities. I think some schools in Florida are getting rid of it. I think North Carolina. I don't think we really need to waste resources on that. I mean, I think we need to focus on what's good for all dentists, you know, whatever persuasion they're from, because we all really have similar concerns. You know, now you could argue a minority dentist is more likely to take Medicaid because they work in a minority community. So in that respect, maybe you should focus on Medicaid for their benefit. But you know, I think you should just concentrate on what concerns all dentists, because we're all basically the same, you know, no matter what race or.
Right. I mean, it's like I mean, a female dentist versus a male dentist, and like we all have, by and large, our biggest issues is dentistry. It's not
Right,
our gender or our race. Like
right.
those are so far down the line of like what's important to the profession, you know.
Yeah,
And like
but
I look at I can't speak for other dental classes, but like I was a minority in my dental class. I mean, Maryland was 50% women. We had every race, ethnicity, and like it was extremely diverse. Like I don't understand why we have to talk so much about diversity.
Yeah, but it's not really it's not a topic of this conversation. It's not that, the huge.
I look at the newsletters, the ADA. It just seems like it's a focus of theirs.
But again, what I want to say, a lot of that stuff can be done on volunteer basis as well. I mean, we don't, I have a passion for it. I will get involved. You understand what I'm saying? So I don't need using the resources. It is important to to make everyone feel welcome into the group. For far too long, we've had white guys running organized dentistry. Come on, you guys can tell. Mainly the people who are used to doing things the same old ways. Okay, so some change needs to be done. And if you don't welcome people into the organization, we'll never make the change.
It's
I
Jill-
totally
true.
agree with
It's-
you. I agree
it's,
with that. Yeah.
There's a wildly popular mommy dentist in business Facebook group, and people feel safe there because sometimes women really get bashed in this male space, and it doesn't really bother me, but it can really upset people. So I think it's important, but I think what's more important
The
is what
business.
we're talking about, and
Right.
it helps everyone, right? It helps everyone. It's like when the ADA talks about mental health. They need to support us so it doesn't affect our mental health, because when they're not supporting me, I don't feel good about myself, or I don't feel great when the insurance company is taking advantage of me. Like, that hurts everyone's mental health. So we got to fix the problem and not just the symptoms, I think.
Yeah, and again, as I said, we should first get our voices together. Minority, women, men, everybody. We have a common problem, and once we all get together, we can do that. But we need to make people welcome into the group. If their voices are not heard, I don't care what color you are. You could be green and you could leave the ADA. Mauty, what are your thoughts
On what?
on on what are our goals? What do you think we
Oh,
should tell the ADA? This is what we want you to do.
well, this is what's important to me. Respond to any proposed government regulation that could hinder our incomes or our autonomy. And also, I think they should attack the whole insurance consultant model, because I know telehealth was a big thing during COVID, but like when I examine a patient, if I just examine the patient over a radiograph on a computer screen and didn't see them in person and then came up with a diagnosis, the board would fine me for inadequate record keeping or practicing. But yet these dental consultants can approve or deny claims based on a mailed-in X-ray and perio chart, for example. I think the ADA should attack that whole insurance consultant model. If the insurance companies want to approve or deny claims using the dental consultant, then the dental consultant should examine the patient in person. Of course, if they had to do that, the insurance companies wouldn't pay for it because that's not economically feasible. So that whole thing should be attacked. And then I think, like, as far as Medicaid, like if they want us to participate with Medicaid, yeah, raise the fees a little bit, but they should decriminalize taking Medicaid. I don't take Medicaid because I don't want to end up in prison. Like if you make a mistake with a private insurance company, they send you a nice letter. We've overpaid you for these claims. Please send a check for X amount within 30 days. They don't send the FBI and they don't confiscate your records. But that has happened to two friends of mine who took Medicaid. And so that's the main reason why I don't participate in Medicaid, because I'm a guy that would love to have Medicaid because it fits my practice model. So I think the ADA should lobby to reform the whole Medicaid overseer system and get rid of these insurance consultants that could deny claims. And maybe they should lobby for a 30-day limit on payment of claims. And I like the MLR now also. Like what Mo did in Massachusetts is great. At first, I had mixed feelings because I don't think business should be regulated, but the insurance companies get away with so much stuff. So I think MLR, attacking the insurance consultant model, decriminalizing Medicaid participation, and I think that would be three issues that are important to me.
Yeah, how about you, Jill? What are your thoughts? What do you
Well,
want?
I think I thought the same thing as Mauty at first, but a lot of these companies are nonprofits, so we're kind of subsidizing them in a way, right? Because they're not paying as much taxes as they should be. So there should be more regulations on them.
So we need advocacy.
It all comes down to advocacy.
We need
And
advocacy.
what's the purpose of the ADA? Have we Googled it? Like, what's their mission statement? I think it's to support dentists and patients. But I feel like when you're supporting dentists, you're also supporting patients because you're allowing us to spend time with our patients. I know Mauty's practice is different than mine, but he's doing a great job. And he's spending time with his patients. The more they keep cutting, the less time we can spend with our patients. And we all been to a doctor, and we know like spending 5 minutes with a doctor is no good. It's not, there's no value in that. It's, you're not building relationships. They're never going to remember you. They're barely seeing you. So that's our medical system. And they're trying to push us that way. And I say, no, like we don't want to go and have our system work like the medical system and coding modifiers and massive amounts of money spent on administration. And that hurts patients. It makes the price go up. We know that. There's an excellent book out there called The Price We Pay. It's all about everything I'm talking about. It's like you have these massive healthcare systems. It costs more. People are paying more for medical care. It's
And
20
the
years
quality
ago, it
actually
didn't
is
cost
going
as
down.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think, Lance? What are your thoughts
No,
on?
I mean, I think they both touched on the biggest issues. I think circling back around, the student debt thing is just horrendous. I mean, the next generation are indentured servants. I say that all the time, but and I think the only way to fix that is to get the government out of the loan business, which is going to be very, very hard to do. But these banks have to be willing to take risks. I mean, that's what loans are supposed to be. Banks evaluate a risk and they determine that they're going to get their money back with interest. And all that went out the window. And now the cost is, I mean, it's risen worse than anything else. Education, it's worse than healthcare. And there's no end in sight. And I think, unfortunately, it's the only thing that they'll respond to is people just defaulting on their loans, which will be interesting to see what happens when the loans start back up here in August. I think they're going to be very shocked that a lot of people just won't be paying their loans.
Yeah, but you know what? Even the defaults, I don't think they'll care because that'll give them a chance to come to the rescue and then ingratiate the credit, the people in default. That's what the government does. They create a crisis, then they come to the rescue. And the serfs are so grateful that they're helping them. They forgot that the people helping them caused the problem in the first place.
I mean, the question is, how does the ADA fix a systemic problem like that? They can't. Yeah, it's the best they can do is represent us, and we can try to score some points for the legislation so that against these insurance, because the insurance companies have so much power and leverage, and it just keeps consolidating, year after year.
I have solutions how to fix the education problem. I have 3 or 4 different things. I mean, maybe in future talks, but I also wanted to make some suggestions. And if the ADA, I mean, not the ADA, I don't want to say ADA in particular, but the organized dentistry is run like politics in Washington, D.C., right? Why can't we have committees? You want to represent DSOs? Okay, 20% of US dentists are part of DSOs. So we have a committee that 20% of the resources should be, given to that topic. If 80% are private practices, we are the biggest chunk. So we need to be represented. We got what, 5% in public health. You got 5% here and there. These we could run it like committees. There is a big issue that was brought up to my attention, and none of us know about this, and I like to bring it up, bring some attention, are these newer specialties that are come on into dentistry, and they have no funding. Nobody represents them. I think the oral pain people, there are 400 of them in the whole United States, and how are they supposed to get any advocacy? Who represents them? So
that's a specialty, oral pain.
Yeah, there's some new.
We're getting carried away with this stuff. I'm okay with the implantologist and the anesthesiologist being a specialty, but oral pain, come on.
Oral facial pain. Well, but do you want to treat TMJ? You and I don't want to treat TMJ.
No.
Exactly. So who are you going to refer him to?
I refer him to either an orthodontist, a local guy, or there's a TMJ specialist in my area I refer him to. But, this is a whole other subject.
That TMJ specialist is an oral facial pain specialist.
Right.
Okay. So we do have people now. We need to advocate for all. But again, the majority of the resources should go to the private practices. You need to provide support. You need to provide advocacy. Jill, you got anything to say at the end? We're getting to the end. I mean, I'd like to go on. I'd like to talk about Mauty's model of practice. I've always
I
wanted.
mean, I think what you're doing is great. I hope it works. And I will gladly
You don't
rejoin
sound
the
hopeful.
ADA as soon as they advocate for me and I can feel it and I know it. I will definitely rejoin.
I mean, I think Jill's got a great plan B. I mean, a coalition of private practice dentists with the same, mentality and, lobbying for themselves is great. And like I said, in Pennsylvania, we're kind of doing that with the AGD because I feel like the AGD represents particularly general dentists much better. Even with the ADA, you're dealing with specialists, and the specialists can be a little territorial, and their desires are a little different than maybe GPs, whereas like the AGD is pretty much totally an advocate of just general dentists.
I joined them when I dropped my ADA membership.
Yeah.
Isn't AGD just counting your CE courses? Do they have?
I mean, we have more than that. I mean, like I said, we hired a lobbyist, like a part-time lobbyist, and we're trying to do what the ADA, we feel like the ADA dropped the ball on.
Yeah, but I love you guys and have join all these good organizations, but you got to be a realistic in these subjects. There's 150 years, there are buildings that the ADA owns in Washington, D.C. This belongs to every dentist, okay?
Do we
They
need
have
a building now?
Huh?
Do we really need buildings?
No, what I'm trying to say is that they have put in place systems that we need. I mean, don't kid yourself. You want to go out there and try to get 150, 160,000 dentists join your organization. I'd be dead. I know that. By the time
we're just local up here, but just advocating locally. So if I feel like ADA changes, they stop putting stupid things out and JADA or whatever. That's not the first one, by the way. I'm not going to list the others, but
that was the worst
I felt
one.
this more than 6 years ago. Like the stuff that I read, I was like, come on, you got to be kidding me.
And this is the worst one, though, of the ones that I remember. I mean, this one was like a direct attack.
Was this the worst one, or was this the one that social media got a hold of?
No, this is the worst one. I read every one. I've been reading every one for years. This is the only one that made me like wake up a little bit. Say, wow, what is this? They're advocating.
They don't do it so much anymore, but back in the day, they'd be like, "Yay, Delta just gave $1 billion to this dental school," and I'm like, "You're happy?"
Yeah, it's an unholy alliance with Delta Dental.
Yeah, I don't know anything about these things, but what I want to know is I want a conflict of interest to end. You can't be for education and then take money from insurance companies. That is one of my pet peeves. But also the other side of this story, what I've heard from someone inside is that, look, nobody's donating to these schools, and these schools need money, so they take money wherever it comes. So maybe we should support our schools. Look, I don't know, they're $100,000 a year. What kind of support do they need?
I was gonna say, what kind of school is charging $125,000 a year per student and needs money? I mean, it's like, what the hell are they doing inside those places?
Well, you should see NYU Dental. I mean, I went to see it a few years ago. Man, that place is fancy. I mean, it was nice when I went there, but now it's just like off the charts. And the funny thing is, the education is worse. They have more students. They have night clinics. When I went, they had 140 students per class. Now they have like close to 400. They have clinics that go on to 8 o'clock at night, and they're jamming the students in there. It's
Plus,
like
you see what these kids are graduating with, the experiences they have.
Well, they
2 root canals. I mean, they're doing like a handful of fillings. It's really pathetic. And I understand why they end up at these DSOs. They're not comfortable. I don't even want, a lot of them right out of school. I just interviewing some of them, I wouldn't want them in my practice. The learning curve is just too steep from what we graduated with. And some of that's COVID. The last 3 years, they just did away with the requirements just to push the kids out the door.
Yeah.
Hopefully it comes back where they're actually getting some real, wet fingered experience in the schools.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. lady and gentlemen, for joining me. I think we accomplished nothing. Did we, Mauty?
Yeah, that's okay.
Look,
That's
this is-
life. It's just like it's like a big, you just like go through the motions and then you drop. That's it, you know?
for those listening, we do have a sports group. You guys can join our sports group. We're gonna have one of these in the sports group, Mauty. We're gonna talk of hoops, but
Yeah, hoops is over, thank God, you know? I
I
need
can
to
sleep
rest. What?
I can sleep now. You know, these West Coast games are killers.
I
But-
know.
Thanks again for joining me. I want to have some of these, when the topics come up, anybody who's listening wants to join, message me. I'll put you on a list. And I wanted to have, this is a very nice group of dentists here because we represent different parts of the country. We got Boston, we got Pennsylvania, Florida, I'm in Illinois, and it just shows that when you ask officials, what is the main concern for every dentist in America, the number one answer is what, Jill?
Advocacy.
Advocacy, advocacy, advocacy. We want our ADA back and we want it to represent us, and I'm willing to help. Anything else, guys?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I've already helped, and if there's something that we can do to meet with legislators and, grease the wheels, happy to do it. I've seen the process in action, and it's daunting. Yeah.
Right. Okay, guys, I'm gonna stop recording, hang out. I want to tell you something else, and then we go from there. Top secret.